This is another sign of the times, an analysis, and a commentary. The new Cold War and Armageddon. Nuclear weapons are a threat to the world. Any large-scale nuclear exchange would have globally catastrophic consequences. Conscious of this reality, President Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev, the leader of the Soviet Union, worked in the 1980s to reduce the number of nuclear weapons with the ultimate goal of getting rid of them. The Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, signed in 1987, was a major step toward this goal, eliminating a large class of nuclear weapons that were viewed as particularly destabilizing. The treaty is still in force, although both the Obama and Trump administrations have said that Russia is in violation. Whatever the case, we need to preserve the agreement rather than abandon it, as President Trump has threatened to do. Indeed, we should invite other countries to join the treaty and resist the temptation ourselves to develop new classes of these deadly weapons. The first step would be to convene a meeting between American and Russian experts to discuss possible violations of the treaty. The treaty included many special features, not the least of which were provisions for extensive on-site inspections to verify that all prohibited missiles had been eliminated. Many doubted that such inspections would ever actually take place, but they did. By 1992, nearly 2,700 missiles had been destroyed. The inspection provisions expired in 2001, but the United States and Russia could agree to revive them to help resolve the worries about compliance. Determined leaders like Mr. Reagan and Mr. Gorbachev could see the need to limit the threat of nuclear weapons, and they acted on it. In their first meeting, they agreed that a nuclear war could never be won and must never be fought. Today, we need leaders who understand the destructive power of nuclear weapons and are willing to work against them. Recent rhetoric has undermined the meaning of these statements, but they're part of the record, and the United States and Russia should strive to live up to them. Now is not the time to build larger arsenals of nuclear weapons. Now is the time to rid the world of this threat. Leaving the treaty would be a huge step backward. We should fix it, not kill it. And there are still too many nuclear weapons in the world, but the American and Russian arsenals are now a fraction of what they were during the Cold War. At the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Review Conference in 2015, Russia and the United States reported to the international community that 85% of those arsenals had been decommissioned and, for the most part, destroyed. Now, this tremendous accomplishment is in jeopardy. President Trump has announced the United States' plan to withdraw from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty and his country's intention to build up nuclear arms. That's nice to know. So then, a new arms race has been announced. The INF Treaty is not the first victim of the militarization of world affairs. In 2002, the United States withdrew from the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. This year, from the Iran nuclear deal, military expenditures have soared to astronomical levels and keep rising. As a pretext for the withdrawal from the INF Treaty, the United States invoked Russia's alleged violations of some of the treaty's provisions. Russia has raised similar concerns regarding American compliance, at the same time proposing to discuss the issues at the negotiating table to find a mutually acceptable solution. But over the past few years, the United States has been avoiding such discussion. With enough political will, any problems of compliance with the existing treaties could be resolved. But as we have seen during the past 2 years, the President of the United States has a very different purpose in mind. It is to release the United States from any obligations, any constraints, and not just regarding nuclear missiles. Donald Trump has in effect taken the initiative in destroying the entire system of international treaties and accords that served as the underlying foundation for peace and security following World War II. There can or will be no winner in a war of all against all, particularly if it ends in a nuclear war. And that is a possibility that cannot be ruled out. An unrelenting arms race, international tensions, hostility, and universal mistrust will only increase the risk. So then, faced with this dire threat to peace, we are not helpless. We must not resign. We must not surrender. This too is another sign of the end of times as we know them, transition days, which is a time of extraordinary changes, happenings, and events. Because it's still about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations? And that should be a very important question to ask. Revelation chapter 16, verse 8. And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch humans with fire. And humans were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which has power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom or nation was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain, and blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings and leaders of the east might be prepared. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, now the mouth of the beast, now the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings and leaders of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. Yes, it's time for the physical and spiritual manifestation of the book of Revelation. And all these are more signs. And this is what I see, think, feel, and spiritually discern.